Now therefore be it resolved that I, Terry Johnson, Mayor for the City of Oceanside, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim November the 19th, 2003 as Brother Benno Foundation's Day in Oceanside, and esteem the founders and volunteers for the dedication to looking beyond the external measure of people, for touching the hearts of those who give and receive a hand up, and for enabling our community to glean from the vision of the Brother Benno Foundation. God bless both of you. Thank you.
I'm Colleen O'Hara, and I will be your host for this evening. My guests are Harold and Kay Kutler, who are the founders of the Brother Benno Foundation. Welcome to the Voice of Oceanside.
Thank you.
It's very nice to have you. You play such a vital role in this community in serving a very big need, and I'm pleased that you could be here this evening to share your story and the story of the foundation with our watching public. Let me find out a little bit about the two of you. Harold, why don't you start off and tell us how you got interested in doing this type of work and how you found yourself in Oceanside.
Well, first we'll start with how I found myself in Oceanside.
Okay.
When I was a young lad, I lived in Long Beach, and we lived between the bay and the ocean. So I loved the beach. And after we got married and had our 3 children, we decided that number one, we wanted to move out of the Long Beach crowded area and find a smaller community and hopefully someplace on the beach. And so we looked and looked. The only place we could afford anything close to the beach was Oceanside. And
it's
so,
probably still the best bargain in Southern California.
For beach property, right. So we decided to move down, and I commuted to Long Beach. So that's how we ended up in Oceanside. Now, how we ended up starting a soup kitchen, in 1976, Kay and I went to the International Marriage Encounter Convention in Philadelphia. It was held in Philadelphia because it was the 200th anniversary of our country, and so we got to see all the sites. The week following our convention was the Eucharistic Congress, and Mother Teresa was one of the main speakers on world hunger. And I had read a lot about her, and I was really fascinated with her, so we stayed over to see her, and I've never been the same. But when I left, after she gave this tremendous talk, when I left that auditorium, I made up my mind, some way I was going to get involved with helping the poor, because she was the person most like Christ that I'd ever experienced. And I'd been in the seminary, Catholic school, but she was the closest to Christ. And I thought what made her that holy was what she did, work with the poor.
Well, she certainly was someone who put her beliefs into practice and didn't let anything stand in her way.
Right.
And Kay, where do you fit into this picture?
Well, I didn't fit in for quite a long time. Harold, we were selling our business, and I imagined wonderful trips, and I love to travel. And then a little bit later, Harold comes home one day and says, I think we'll open a soup kitchen. Well, I thought he had lost his marbles, because I just couldn't quite fathom spending, the kids were all pretty well raised, that we were going to open a soup kitchen. So it took him 6 months to get it going, and all his little things. Didn't go down one time. I was just a very little snot at that time. And the first night I went down, I knew that I was at the right place, because I had had many things that happened in my life, dyslexia and many things that were challenges, but they were because it's why I fit in at the kitchen, because I've been there, done that, did that with most of the things that our guests have done. And it's been a joy, a real joy. And it's so neat that we get to work together, and I still get to travel. He doesn't like to, but
Yeah. I know, I've heard about some of your travels.
Oh, yeah.
Harold, who was Brother Benno? A lot of people in our community don't know who he was.
Well, Brother Benno is our local saint. I first met him when I opened a branch of our business in Oceanside, so I didn't have to commute every day.
About when was that?
That was in '78.
Okay.
And shortly after we opened there, one day, the secretary said, "Somebody's here to see you. He looks like he's a religious, you know." So I went out, and here's Brother Benno with this big smile, and he hands me this loaf of bread, and he tells me, you know, he bakes the bread, and it's very special. And you know, I said, "Well, thank you. Is there anything I can do for you?" And he says, "Well," I told him, you know, we make vitamins. And he said, "Well, I don't need vitamins, but some of the puny guys up on the hill might." So,
up on the hill being the Abbey.
Prince of Peace Abbey, right.
Prince of Peace Abbey.
And so I gave him some vitamin E and C, and then
That's the business you were in?
yes,
Vitamins.
and so then he would come by about every other week, and you know, he was a real charmer, man. He'd give you that little smile. He had that little twinkle in his eye, and you couldn't resist him. And so I got to know him, and then after I volunteered at what's now Good Samaritan, was St. Jude's residence, and he used to come by every day bringing food and sweets, and then we used to serve a meal at night. And so then I got to know him better, and so when I decided to open the soup kitchen, I wanted to name it Brother Benno's Kitchen, because he was the person doing the most for the poor in our area. And so I went to the abbot and told him, said, "Well, you'll have to ask Brother Benno." So I asked Brother Benno, and he was so happy, because he always wanted, you see, he fed everybody out of his truck, but he always wanted a location where people could come and eat a meal, you know. So that's how we started there in '83.
And you started in a facility in the downtown area on, I think it was Cleveland?
And Minnesota.
Cleveland
right.
and Minnesota.
Right, and we were very blessed because we didn't have a conditional use permit. We were in a residential area, and the city council at that time knew we were there and allowed us to operate. And so we were, well, by the grace of God, we were there. And then after we were open about a year and a half, I came down in the afternoon, and there was this yellow ribbon around the building. And I said to the manager, what's this? He said, "The health department was here today and has closed us down because we have no health license." And so we had a friend of Brother Benno's that was head of sanitation at that time in the city, and so I called him, and he made an appointment for me over in San Marcos with the health department. And I went over there, and they were not happy because we'd been operating a year and a half, and they didn't even know it. But I finally convinced the guy, if they didn't allow us to, you know, he told us how we had to fix the place up to make it, you know, pass the regulations. And I said, "Well, can't we stay open while we're doing the work? Because the people we're feeding will eat out of garbage cans and dumpsters if they don't eat out of..."
Which is a lot less healthy than,
You bet.
than what you were providing.
And he said, "Well, okay." And he said, reluctantly, "You guys must have been doing something right, because we never had a complaint." So then anyway, after 30 days, we did all the repairs and everything. And the inspectors came and went through everything and said, "Okay, it looks good. Where's your city license?" I said, "Well..."
Icky, picky.
Right. Give me a break.
Yeah.
I said, we don't have one, but the city knows we're here and they let us operate. And the guy just shook his head. I said, call him. So he calls the city, and after he gets through talking to him, he's shaking his head because another guy was with him. He says, I don't understand this, but the city says it's all right with them. So we are the only people that ever got a health permit that didn't have a license. Then is when I said, God is really in charge of this deal,
So when you first opened, how many people would show up? You were serving dinner back in those days, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people would show up for dinner every night?
Well, the very first night, we had 19 people. And most of them were men, street people. And then our 3 children came just to check it out. So we had 19 people. And Kay can tell you what happened that night to her.
Okay.
I was just sitting there, observing, not criticizing or anything, just,
It wasn't your soup kitchen, it was
and,
his, right?
yeah, he was a guy. And I don't know, something inside me just went over to help and hug the first person in line, and they were standing there. And it came to me, I'm not saying it came to me, and it said, Kathleen, this is what I've saved you for. Everything, my whole life. I always knew there was something out there for me. Never quite could put my finger on it. But I knew that night that was the combination of my whole life and why it was so important to be there, to feed the people and to support my beloved husband.
So you hugged the first person in line, and you've hugged every person in line that's come through since. Is that right?
I wished I could say that. I sometimes don't make it down there as early as I should. I used to get up at 5, and that was before I had a heart attack and got diabetes and stuff. Now I just go down when I wake up, but I wake up around 6:30, and it's been a joy and a love of my life. And
Well, I know whenever you're in town, you're always down there hugging,
Yes,
hugging
yes.
the people who come through.
great joy.
And how do you decide who gets those meals? What's the criteria for someone coming through your program?
We've been asked that question many times, and the best way that I can explain it is that as long as the people follow our simple rules, have shoes on and a shirt, not be under the influence of alcohol, drugs, do not loiter in the park, do not throw things, litter the park. We have, just basic rules. If they go by those rules, then we feed them, they can take showers, give them clothing. And we've had, critical people come in and say, well, there's a bunch of freeloaders, how do you know they're deserving? Well, what I always tell them is, remember the time when Jesus fed the 5,000 with the loaves and fishes? He did not tell his apostles, before you give the food to anybody, make sure they're legitimate, you see, because there were plenty of people spying on him from the temple, etc. And so it's not our position to judge anybody, The most basic thing we need is food. We need to eat. And so we're there to feed people that are hungry.
Well, I've been there on many occasions to help out with serving breakfast to the folks who come through, and I know there is a big variety of people. Obviously, some people who are homeless, some who are just struggling as
Right.
young families to get back on their feet, and probably people who have recently been employed,
Right.
who need the hot meal on their way to work, and eventually you won't see them anymore because they have improved their lives. We're going to watch now your response at the city council meeting when the mayor presented you with a proclamation. So we'll pull that up on the screen for everyone to see. Thank
you. My goodness, it doesn't seem possible. 20 years older, and 2 millionth meal, and I've loved every day of it. And it's just a joy and a pleasure to be here today. We love the people we work with, and they love all of you. They're very kind, gentle people. If they're treated nice, they'll be nice to you. So remember us. If you ever run into some guy that needs a meal or a nice shower or whatever, and here's my beloved.
Or a good hug. Terry forgot to mention that Kay has almost given out 600,000 hugs in 20 years. But we would like to thank the people of Oceanside and the people of North Coastal area who have supported us so generously. We want to thank all the tremendous volunteers that make all of this possible. Just marvelous people. And the amazing thing about our volunteers, most of our key volunteers are about 80 years old. It's given them a new life. You know, you hear this statement about the golden years, and then when you get there, you're a little disappointed. But if you want to find the gold in your golden years, volunteer. That's where it's at. God bless you all. Thank you.
May the good Lord bless and keep you, whether near or far away. May you find that long-awaited golden day today. May your problems all be small ones, and your fortunes 10 times 10. May the good Lord bless and keep you till we meet you down at Brother Benno.
God bless you. Thank you. Thanks, both of you.
Well, that was quite a tribute the City of Oceanside paid to the two of you, and very graciously accepted. I love hearing your song, Kay. I know you sing it every morning that you're down there at Brother Benno's. Tell me, Kay, about the volunteers who work at Brother Benno's.
They're an exceptional group because, as you know, we don't have paid salaries, and everybody that's there wants to be there. That is their mission in life. They're all ages from 16 up to 84, 85, and Dixie Bales does a tremendous. She can get volunteers. She just amazes me, and she has a repertoire of about 1,200 volunteers for Thanksgiving. We use 85 volunteers, and on Christmas Day, we use 125. She sends them all letters and, has their positions all marked out. And it's just been a joy working with Dixie and with all of the volunteers.
Harold, what are some of the jobs that the volunteers do at Brother Benno's?
Well, starting with Dixie, she's our volunteer coordinator. And she is, I think, 81. And I'm just flabbergasted at the drive she has. I mean,
she is amazing.
My golly, it's just amazing. But then
you're probably going to be in trouble for telling everyone how old she is, because she certainly doesn't look it.
Well, I think she's kind of proud. You see,
good
I mean,
for her.
When you reach that age and you're as capable as she is, boy, I tell you can brag. But then we have a terrific guy named John Jarvie, who's also, in that upper age bracket. He's remodeled we have 10 facilities. He's remodeled all of them. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. And we have guys in our recovery program, that help him. They can't keep up with him. They're half the age. They can't keep up with John. He's just unbelievable ex-Marine. Then we have, I just have gotten an assistant named Mary Robinson, who is terrific. I mean, I'm getting a little old for the front lines, so I need all the help I can get, and she's just, she's younger, terrific, good energy, has worked with the poor before, and it's just, wonderful. We have let's see, Virginia in the warehouse. Now, most people will not believe that and I'm not telling her age, a woman, let alone an older woman, running a warehouse. This gal, I mean, I think in her other life she was a drill sergeant because, man, she runs that by the numbers and organized, everything's moving. It's just, you know, to me, it's such a joy to see older people find real meaning in life at, you know, in the twilight. Is just inspiring.
Well, it keeps them young. That's
exactly.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.
Well, it's true. Now, you take Blanche, who's in charge of food service. She's 82. She's had 2 hip replacements, cataracts taken out of both eyes, and doesn't stop her. She's down there every day. She had to take a few weeks off for the hip replacements. She used to get up at 4:30 in the morning and get down there by 5:30 to get everything organized. We opened at 6:30. Now she, like Kay, sleeps in a little longer, but she's down there before we open. And so those are, you know, some of our, we also should mention Rosemary Tucker, who opened our thrift shop. Just remarkable woman. She's just lovely and bright and has done so much for the foundation, because the thrift shop has certainly been a source of a lot of support, revenue.
And I know that you use a lot of volunteers to help serve in the early mornings. Various groups from the community that come in and actually stand behind the counter and
oh yes,
dish out the food.
Right. When we first started, we realized that we're going to need some help. We may have started serving 19, but pretty soon it was 38. Pretty soon it was 80.
And today it is?
Well, today, on an ordinary day, maybe 150. But when we left the downtown area, we were serving over 200 every night. One night we got up over 300, which was sort of an aberration, but it happened, and we didn't run out of food. But so we started talking to the different service groups and churches, and one by one we got sponsors for each night, one night a month, you know. And we also started out and still are ecumenical. So we had the Methodists serving, and the Anglicans, and the Catholics, and the Rotary, and the Kiwanis. And it did a great deal to build some community among the different faiths in our city.
And recently, you served your 2 millionth meal. And I think we have a video of that presentation.
This occasion is happening today. We have served our 2 millionth meal.
I told them what happened to me, about me losing my job and I have no place to stay. And she's like, well, you know, you shouldn't be out there being pregnant. Brother Benno was almost the only one that would say, sure, we'll take you in. And they helped me get my ID. They helped me get my birth certificate. And they're really cool.
Well, that must have been a very joyous occasion for the two of you, to realize that you've served 2 million people.
Yeah, it doesn't seem possible, you know. Of course, when we started out 20 years ago, we were not thinking in those kind of terms.
How do you keep track? Does somebody
every day. Yeah.
Keeps a record every day of
every day.
How many people are served?
Right, and also the meals that are served in our shelters. So,
tell me a little bit about the shelters. You mentioned that you have 10 different facilities, and I know some of these are homes where people who are in recovery actually live.
Right. We have a residential recovery program that's a year's program, and right now we have about 25 guys in it. And we start out at phase 1, which starts out at the Good Samaritan residence downtown, which is also an emergency shelter. And guys that are ready to recover can stay there. And we let them stay first for 3 days so we can get to know them. And they come down to the center to work and see if they're really committed.
They're really ready.
You got to be committed or you don't recover. It's a very difficult
So it's not just
process.
a place to hang out. You actually have to work while you're
You bet.
work on your recovery while you're there.
Right. And so if we accept them into the program, then they start out in the scullery at the bottom and work down at the center. They get up about 4:30 in the morning, and so they recapture the work ethics, and after the initial few weeks, then we start putting them in, say, the kitchen where they can learn how to cook, in the warehouse where they can be licensed with the forklift, learn how to warehouse. We have a computer lab where we teach them how to use the computer. And we prepare them for a new life. And we've had some marvelous successes, and we've had certainly some failures. But to me, that's the most fulfilling thing we do, because you actually see this person come in as Mr. Hyde, and you watch the transformation as he becomes Dr. Jekyll again. And I mean, it's just, as Kay can tell you, you get goosebumps when you see these guys just dramatically turn 180 degrees, and then go out and become successes.
Okay, there's a program for women in recovery also, isn't there?
Yes, there are women that are on drug court, and they stay with us in our Carlsbad home, and then I think they go to court once a month to test that they're clean and sober and they're working. And then we have another emergency shelter for women and children that is a 30-day shelter. And
So you try to address all the needs that come through the door, it sounds like.
We try to address the needs of the subpopulations of the homeless, because, people use the word homeless and they think of this guy holding up a sign, "We'll work for food," That's one small fraction of the homeless. 40% are families. 33% are mentally ill. And then you have the veterans, the disabled, the runaways, and so you have all these subpopulations. And what we have tried to do is to address the needs we did have a house for the mentally ill, which we had for several years until they opened safe havens here in the city. One of the guys on our board did that, so we gave him our grant with the health department, because he was able to have 12 beds for men and women. We only had 6. But that's the thing, homelessness has gotten a bad name because of this small group. You see,
we have the stereotype of the
Right.
person standing on the street corner, and it's really a much broader problem.
Oh, absolutely.
that
You see,
person.
so he gives the wrong message. You see, the right message is a mother with small children who's been abused or divorced that ends up homeless. The veteran that went off and fought in Vietnam that no longer can function. About 11% of the homeless are veterans.
Right. And now find themselves without the skills or the mental health to
Right.
get the problem.
Right.
We're going to take another short break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
At Brother Benno Center in Oceanside, we've been helping the poor and needy with food, clothing, shelter, and social services for over 20 years. To continue this tradition, we need help. We need your support and your donations. Please open your hearts and give to others. You'll make their days brighter, and that will make your days brighter too. We guarantee it. Please call us today. We'll explain how you can help. We're Brother Benno's, and we care about people.
What does being involved really mean? Is it making grilled cheese sandwiches for a sleepover? Staying for the curtain call at the talent show? Or learning the names of their favorite bands? Believe it or not, right now, there are parents just like you out there talking about things like this. From school to home, from friends to futures. And we'd like you to be a part of it. National PTA, every child, one voice.
It doesn't matter who you are, or what you drive, or where you live. You have the power to give someone the greatest gift in the world, life. Make the decision to be an organ donor. Make the decision to donate life.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Voice of Oceanside. This evening we are addressing the needs of the homeless population in Oceanside with Harold and Kay Kutler, who are the founders of the Brother Benno Foundation. During the break, we saw a lot of pictures of children, and I know that a lot of what you do at the center is work with some of those homeless children. And you were mentioning just before the break that a large segment of the homeless population are young families. What percentage are families out there in the homeless population?
The percentage in this area is about 40% of the homeless are families, most of them single parents, the mother with the children.
And most of those families with children are like a one-parent family, right?
Correct.
When someone comes to the center, what are the types of services they get if they show up for breakfast at 6 or 6:30 in the morning? What do they get besides breakfast?
Well, first of all, they come in and they sign a form, so that we know something about them, where they came from, if they have a home, where they're sleeping. We know a good part of the people that come in. And we've even put people together from Washington or from Australia. They write and say, "Have you seen my daughter?" We have everybody on a computer. I don't know how many we have, like 6,000 people on our computer. And we've put families together. They can get a shower in the morning. They can visit our case manager. They can get clothing. We have a Brother Benno's boutique where they can select different clothes. We have a book where they can select a book for the day. We have sack lunches that they can take home with them so that they're never hungry. And we have tons of bread that they can take with them. And there's been a lot of extra fruit and vegetables, so they take that. And we give them out warm blankets. We have a lot of blankets and, just hygiene items that help them make the day a little easier. We get haircuts 5 days a week. They look good. And a very famous designer, I can't say who it is, but they delivered us about, I'd say in a big amount of money, these clothes, because they had been misprinted. It had medium on things that were this big and that big and this big. And I want to tell you, the homeless are looking good. I mean, they're really styling, And we've all got hats, and we're going to have quite a Christmas with all name brand hats and everything. So it's been exciting.
Oh, that will be fun. I think we might have a caller. Oh, I think we lost our caller.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Where do you get the food?
We get the food, first of all, for the congregate feeding from the government, the surplus food, which we get from the food bank in San Diego. We have to buy some of the meat and some of the other things. For our food pack program, we buy our food packs from the food bank, most of them. We do make up quite a few ourselves, but we do buy more from them. And it's, a balanced package. We'll feed a family of 4 for about a week. And it's got all the staples and fruit, vegetables, canned meat, cereal.
So those are just given to families?
Families, working poor families. You have to have a home to get a food pack, be able
You have
to
to have
cook.
a place to cook and store the food.
But 3 years ago, we were giving out about 150 a month, and then we went into arrangement with the city of Oceanside with their 4 resource centers in the different poor areas, and started giving out food packs there. So then we went from 150 to 700 a month. So that's become a big part of the program.
That's a
Big,
Yes.
right. Then we get the letter carriers food drive they have each year.
Mm-hmm.
We're the recipient here in Oceanside, and we're able to make about 2,000 food packs from that. And then the schools have, this time of the year, have food drives. So that's where the food comes from.
And when people are there eating on in the morning, I know I see a lot of packaged foods that is given out to them. The bread that you mentioned, and there'll be packages of cupcake and sometimes a lot of fruit, and then of course the very interesting meals you serve. I mean, I would never think to serve macaroni and cheese for breakfast, but I've seen it served there.
And they love it.
Oh, I know. It's a very hearty meal, but it's not a traditional breakfast. I mean, sometimes there's scrambled eggs and bacon, but a lot of times it's spaghetti, something like that.
We're famous for our Saturday spaghetti. People come from all over.
Oh.
They love it with the garlic bread and the salad. That's our big.
So that's your Saturday morning breakfast. Huh? Okay. So does a lot of that come from grocery stores that have to rotate things out because they've expired?
Right. All of the bread we pick up from the grocery stores. We do get milk, especially during this strike. We've gotten a lot of milk to go with our food packs instead of buying it. And the pastries. And then once a week we also get bouquets of flowers that are about, ready to start wilting, but they're still good. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we pick up lots of different things from the grocery stores.
We have an interesting program called Servants of the Poor, and people come from all over the world that have worked with us, from the Philippines and South Africa and Kansas and New York, and they dedicate a year of their life to being with us. One of our homes is just strictly for those people, and they do wonderful work for us, and we all work together, and we meet as a community, and it's a real addition to us.
Now, you're a nonprofit corporation governed by a board of directors, is that correct? How many on your board?
9.
9.
Mm-hmm.
And they set the policy for the organization.
Right.
And all this other programming that you do, that's all done by volunteers?
Well, the Servants of the Poor, they're volunteers, but they get a stipend and, of course, board and room. And but outside of that,
all those cooks I see down there in the kitchen,
they're in the program.
They're all in the recovery program. They're wonderful cooks. And the attitude of the people that I see down there is just inspirational. I mean, they seem so appreciative of what's being done for them. and then are willing to pitch in and help.
Right.
Help to feed others. I find that very inspirational
Right.
when I hang around down there.
One thing, one thing you said earlier, how most people think that we just feed people, and they do not know about all the different programs. For example, we have a tutoring program for poor children in a poor neighborhood, Crown Heights. We also get mail call for people that are homeless. They have no other way to get mail except we have a mailing address for them.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Oh yeah, it's important because some of them get notices from the government. A lot of them get notices from the court, which they'd rather not get. But anyway, but one thing that's happened, when we first started, we were serving about 95% homeless men. Today, we're serving 84% working poor families and 16% homeless. And of those two mixes, 62% are minors at risk. So that's the tremendous concern that we all should have. There's so many children involved in poverty and in homelessness, and without help, they don't have a chance. See, that's why we're tutoring, because an education is their key out of poverty. So that's something, that we all need to be more concerned about and do more about.
Why don't you share with us a success story or two?
Oh,
Kay, what's your favorite success story?
This guy came in, he'd been in our program, just an adorable lad from Chicago. And he was with us for quite a while and graduated from the program, and we were so happy. And one day he comes in and he says, Kay, I've got something to show you. He had a Thunderbird car. He said, I used to drink Thunderbird, now I'm driving one. There's miracles all the time, Oh, and we had one guy come in that looked just like Tom Selleck. He modeled in one of our fashion shows. Handsome hunk, oh my God. So he became very famous in the IBM or computer company, and he came back one time in a BMW in a beautiful, expensive suit, and he walks in the center and he meets one of the guys there and he hugs him, a great big guy, and he used to be his guard in prison. He had to have someone to watch him,
Protect him.
to protect him in prison.
Oh.
So that was,
Yeah. Harold, what's your favorite success story?
Well, my very favorite is a fellow that used to come to the old kitchen, and then of course we moved, and he would volunteer to work, especially in our warehouse. And the guy was a tremendous worker, but he was a drug addict, And so, but we needed the help in the warehouse because we didn't have anybody that knew as much as he did. And so we let him volunteer, although we knew that he was taking a bunch of stuff with him when he left. Finally, one day he came in and he says, I'm ready for your recovery program. And I thought, wow. So we took him in, and every day I'd say, have you got a sponsor yet? He says, no, I can't relate to any of those people. I says, you got to get a sponsor. So finally he gets a sponsor. And I'll never forget this guy that was a servant of the poor volunteer. We went out to pick up some stuff, or he went out with this guy, we call him Jim. And coming back, Jim says, why don't we stop at McDonald's? I'm hungry. And so the guy says, okay. So they stop and order at the window, and Jim gives the gal a $10 bill, and she made a mistake on the change and gave him $15 back. And so the guy who was the servant of the poor thought, boy, I bet he's going to keep it. But no. Jim says, hey, you gave me too much money, and he gave her back. See, getting honest is the big step in recovery.
First step in
here was this guy that used to pilfer our warehouse, getting honest. Well, he was with us for about a year and a half. We did put him in charge of the warehouse. And then a friend, he decided he was ready to go out and work in the real world. So we called a friend of ours in a big company, and I said, hey, we've got a guy here that's a tremendous worker, and I'm recommending him. And so he went and filled out the application and everything else, and then my friend calls me and says, this guy's got a record. And I said, yeah, but he's changed his life, and I'm vouching for him. So they hired him on a temporary basis. Before you know it, he was full-time. And then a year later, my friend called me and says, you want some good news? I said, well, yeah. He says, you know Jim? I said, yeah. He was voted Employee of the Month.
Oh, wow.
2 years later, he was voted Employee of the Year. Pretty soon they sent him to college down in San Diego to get some special courses. And I mean, a miracle, you see. And so every time I see him, I say, boy, thank you, God.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, those success stories make it all worthwhile.
Oh.
On that note, we're going to take another short break. We'll be right back.
The digital divide is the distance we allow between those who have the power of information and those who don't. In AmeriCorps, we're working to bridge that gap so that all of us can get to a better place. We're going around the world, on the web. In AmeriCorps, it's not can you make a difference, it's where. It's your world. It's your chance to make it better.
KOCT celebrates our First Amendment rights.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion,
or prohibiting the free exercise thereof,
or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press,
or the right of people peaceably to assemble
and to petition the government for redress of grievances.
Enjoy your First Amendment freedoms and respect the rights of others to express theirs.
KOCT strives to serve viewers with programs reflecting the activities, concerns, and interests of the residents of Oceanside in a manner that promotes a free exchange of ideas and information. KOCT presents a diversity of people, programming, and viewpoints not seen on other channels, and encourages the use of Channel 18, your community channel, as a public forum for a free and robust exchange of ideas and information.
Thank you for watching The Voice of Oceanside. We are talking with Harold and Kay Kutler from the Brother Benno Foundation. It's been a very fascinating session with the two of you. We have just very few minutes to get things wrapped up here. We've talked about all your great programs and all the wonderful volunteers who help you run this program, but I know it takes money to do this. So tell me, where does the money come from?
That was in Jerry Maguire. Where's the money?
Yeah, show me the money. Right.
Well, we have, from the beginning, we have been blessed with wonderful supporters. And so throughout our 20 years, the backbone of our support has been people.
Yes, donations from
donations people. And of course institutions too, churches and things, but you know, we've had some very generous people that adopted us and enabled us to do what we do, you know.
Well, I know what it is. It's your newsletter that you write every month.
Oh,
we send it out to people all over the United States that are supporting us. It's kind of exciting. And so, you know, take the credit, honey. You write. He writes every month. We get it out there.
Oh, I get that newsletter. I didn't know that you were the one who wrote it, Harold. Thank you. I read it every month when it comes. And you made reference to a thrift store, so I know you make money off of your thrift store.
thrift store has been a very vital part of our ability to grow, and a wonderful place to volunteer. The women there are really, really neat. You know, they've got a good spirit and do a great job.
And it's a good place to shop, too.
Boy, you want bargains?
Yeah.
Go there.
Senior Citizens on Thursday.
Well, it's Senior Citizen Day on Thursday. And tell us where the thrift store is located.
It is across from